Hello and welcome to the Commodities Institute podcast. I'm Emily Costa and today is December 16th, 2025. Thank you as always for spending part of your day with me. After more than 2 decades covering commodities, I can tell you this much with confidence. When logistics, geopolitics and climate all collide at once, the ripple effects tend to last longer than anyone expects. And that is exactly the story unfolding across markets right now. I want to start today not with oil prices themselves, but with the cost of simply moving oil around the world, because shipping has quietly become one of the most powerful forces shaping energy markets. Very large crude carriers, the massive tankers that move up to 2 million barrels per voyage, are earning around $130,000 a day. That is not a temporary spike driven by a single outage or storm. It reflects something deeper and more structural. The global tanker fleet is aging, and sanctions are removing ships from the available pool faster than new vessels can replace them. Nearly half of the VLCC fleet is now older than 15 years, an age when many oil majors are reluctant to charter them because of safety, efficiency, and insurance concerns. On top of that, a significant share of these older ships has been sanctioned for carrying crude from Russia, Iran, or Venezuela. Those vessels still move oil, but they operate in the shadows, outside traditional insurance markets and outside the reach of major charterers. This so-called shadow fleet has grown into a parallel system. It was never the intended outcome of sanctions policy, but it is now a defining feature of the oil trade. Hundreds of tankers operate with opaque ownership, limited oversight, and minimal accountability. For compliant operators, that means fewer ships available and higher rates. For the market as a whole, it means fragility. Any disruption, whether it is new sanctions enforcement or renewed attacks in the Red Sea, immediately tightens supply, and that fragility is being tested in real time in Venezuela. The seizure of a tanker carrying Venezuelan crude marked a turning point. It was the first interception of its kind and sent a shockwave through PDVSA's export system. Add to that a cyber attack that knocked out administrative systems, and you have a country struggling to move millions of barrels already sitting offshore. Tankers have turned around mid-voyage. Loading instructions have been suspended. Some ships are sailing with their tracking systems turned off, a practice known as dark mode, to avoid scrutiny. For oil markets, this matters less because Venezuela is a swing supplier, and more because it highlights how political risk increasingly shows up in logistics rather than outright production losses. Oil is being produced, but it cannot move freely. That distinction is crucial. Now, let's widen the lens, because this theme of constrained movement shows up in other corners of the commodities world too. In dry freight, Ukraine has made it clear that higher rail tariffs are inevitable. Years of infrastructure damage from ongoing attacks have left the transport system under severe strain. For farmers and industrial producers, higher freight costs function like a tax, eroding margins and complicating export economics. Once again, the commodity exists, but getting it to market is becoming more expensive and uncertain. Against that backdrop, I want to shift gears to agriculture, because here the story is almost counterintuitive. Western Canada has just posted record harvests of spring wheat and canola, despite years marked by floods, droughts, and extreme weather. Yields that would have been unimaginable a generation ago are now becoming normal. This is not a miracle, and it is not luck. It is the result of steady, incremental adaptation. Farmers have invested heavily in no-till and minimum-till practices that protect soil moisture. They have installed underground drainage systems to handle floods. They are using precision agriculture, slow-release fertilizers, and advanced seed genetics to extract more output from every acre. The technology is expensive, often costing millions of Canadian dollars per farm, but it is allowing producers to stabilize yields in an increasingly unstable climate. The global implication is profound. Higher yields in major exporting countries help keep food prices lower worldwide, even as climate risks intensify. But there is a flip side. These gains are uneven. Farmers who cannot afford the technology or who lack reliable broadband access to run modern equipment risk being left behind. Adaptation is working, but it is not equally accessible. While agriculture adapts, power markets are undergoing a quieter transformation. Global coal exports have declined for the first time since 2020, driven largely by reduced imports in Asia. China and India, the two largest buyers, are producing more coal domestically, while also expanding renewable energy at record pace. Coal still dominates their power mix, but its share is shrinking. In China, coal's share of electricity generation has fallen to the lowest level on record, just over 55%. In India, coal now accounts for under 70%, down sharply from recent years. Solar, wind, hydro and nuclear are doing more of the heavy lifting. The result is fewer seaborne coal shipments and rising competition among exporters. Over time, this trend points to a structural contraction in the global coal trade, even if absolute demand remains high in the near term. Carbon policy is also reshaping energy flows in less obvious ways. The European Union's methane emissions law is forcing exporters to track and report emissions embedded in oil and gas imports. The United States is pushing back hard, calling the regulation a trade barrier and seeking exemptions that would delay compliance for years. This is not just a regulatory dispute. It is a signal that environmental standards are becoming tools of economic statecraft, influencing who can sell energy to whom and under what conditions. Finally, let's talk about metals, because strategic minerals are now firmly at the center of industrial policy. The United States is backing major investments in domestic mining and refining, taking equity stakes and offering financial support to projects once considered too risky or too slow. Korea Zinc's plan to build a massive refinery in Tennessee underscores how supply chains are being reoriented away from China and toward trusted partners. These moves are not without controversy. Shareholder battles, legal challenges, and political debates are all part of the process. But the direction of travel is clear. Governments are no longer content to let markets alone determine where critical minerals come from. Security of supply now matters as much as cost. When you step back and connect these threads, a common theme emerges. Commodities markets are no longer just about supply and demand. They are about resilience, about who controls infrastructure, who bears risk, and who pays when systems break down. Shipping constraints, cyber risks, climate adaptation, environmental regulation, and industrial policy are all interacting in ways that amplify volatility. As we head into the new year, expect more moments where logistics rather than production drive prices. Expect more investment in resilience, whether that is smarter farms, newer ships, cleaner power, or domestic mineral supply chains, and expect more friction along the way. That's all for today's episode of the Commodities Institute podcast. I'm Emily Coaster. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.